Lilith, the Black Moon, a mysterious, a moving mathematical point, has a primal potency that spreads its roots and feelers beneath the surface of things and erupts like gunfire or with a roar every now and then. This year, Lilith is in the sign of the lion, Leo, for most of the year. And so therefore she's expressing herself in a more Leo kind of way. Now I want to read you a quote by someone who was born with Lilith in Leo, and I think it kind of sums up so much of what this feeling is, of what it means to have the dark moon Lilith, which is the dark feminine, coming through the sign of the sun. Here we go. Let us simmer over our incalculable cauldron, our enthralling confusion, our hodgepodge of impulses, our perpetual miracle. For the soul throws up wonders every second. Movement and change are the essence of our being. Rigidity is death. Conformity is death. Let us say what comes into our heads. Repeat ourselves, contradict ourselves, fling out the wildest nonsense, and follow the most fantastic fancies without caring what the world does or thinks or says, for nothing matters except life. Now, Lilith is a dark life force. She's a life force. And Leo is the sign of creativity, is the sign of that, of also of life force. So there's an incredible vivacity about Lilith in Leo. That's Virginia Woolf, of course, the great novelist, essayist, feminist from the 20th century. It's from one of her essays. Now, Leo, so Lilith is coming through Leo. Leo is a sign that we associate with, among many, many things, of course, with playfulness and also with childhood and the delights of childhood in particular. But I have observed, I have to say, that people with Lilith, who are born with Lilith and Leo, often have their childhood stolen from them in some way. Virginia Woolf herself, for example, lost her mother and was abused for a long time by her half-brother throughout her childhood, which had a huge effect on her writing and on her. Obviously, it had an effect. That's just an obvious thing to say. She was abused as a child. And you do see this, some kind of theft of the childhood sometimes with people who have Lilith and Leo. But there's always another side to the coin with any kind of astrological placement. You know, you have to see planets in the round, and you also have to see Lilith in the round as a little round thing with good and bad and dark and light. Some other sort of famous examples of people who have had quite abused childhoods are Marilyn Monroe. I think Rihanna had quite a bad one. But look what they turned that into. They turned that into massive charisma. Marilyn Monroe is Lilith and Leo with Lilith rising, and I think Rihanna might have Lilith rising too. And obviously Monroe's Lilith makes a conjunction to Neptune, so that's a big deal. But here are some other people who just have astonishing charisma, which sort of extra charisma. We're used to thinking of Leo as a sign with charisma, but Lilith has a kind of seductive allure, and you think of Monroe as like the arch kind of seductress, as that's the thing she projected. But it's also a sign of kings and queens, right? So Elizabeth, Leo is. Elizabeth II, last queen, had it, Lilith and Leo. JFK had it. Vladimir Putin has it, and Barack Obama also. They all have Lilith and Leo. And I would say they, along with like Rihanna in particular, have a kind of unboxed regality. I mean, love him or loathe him, Putin feels like a king, maybe a despotic king, but he does feel like a king. I also like to point out that Leo is a highly creative sign. We all know this anyway. You know, it's ruled by the sun, the powering pulse of that solar creativity that powers the entire earth and all life on earth. That's Leo's ruler. And you'll find that a lot of artists and very, very creative people have Lilith and Leo. I want to go back to Virginia Woolf again. This is why she's such a fine example of Lilith and Leo. Is that not only is she a great novelist, etc., but she broke all the rules. And Lilith is partly about breaking all the rules. She broke all the rules about how you write a book, how you write a novel. And she wrote a lot about aloneness and the creative process, and she was very fascinated by the process of creativity itself, and was a great thinker about this. As you know, she wrote A Room of One's Own, which is interestingly, you know, that's like what's the creative space what's the space that you need in order to be creative, especially as a woman. So, what do we make of what's Lilith and Leo is going to mean for those of us who don't have Lilith and Leo, but who are going to be who are already experiencing this transit, which is from the 8th of January 2023 to the 3rd of October 2023. So let's just, you know, what you do with astrology, obviously, is you think about what the object, or in this case, the point means, which in the case of Lilith, there's a negative and a positive. The negative is adultery, abuse, madness, rule breaking. But we've already seen some examples of rule breaking that you know, work quite well. You know, things like abortion and loss of children. These are all themes of Lilith, the dark side of Lilith. But the positive side is independence, creativity, dark feminine power, witchiness, sexual freedom, you know, feeling liberated sexually, and also wilderness and wildness. And I think there's something much wilder even about when Lilith comes through Leo. You know, if you can explore, what does that mean for yourself? And we'll just talk quickly about what it will mean for different signs. But I just want to say also that what is Leo? Leo is the theater, isn't it? It's the theater of life. That's where this is coming through. It's drama. It's exceptionalism. It's bling. It's display. It's kings and queens, the kings and queens of pop, the pearly kings and queens. Doesn't matter what kind of king or queen. The royals. Probably another royal scandal, Lilith and Leo. I wonder. May come out. Could there possibly be yet another? I mean, it's interesting that we're having a coronation in this country while Lilith is in Leo. What does that mean? I think I might look at Charles's chart and have a little question to myself about that. So what about when she travels through the zodiacs? And so, you know, her last transit, she's just come through Cancer, and we saw, and Cancer is the sign of the United States and of women and childbirth particularly. So that side of her came out. And of course we had the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the backlash. And interestingly enough, and this is something that's really important to understand with astrology, both those things are Lilith. Both the kind of, it's like opening up the can of worms by overturning Roe versus Wade. And the backlash against that, Lilith is angry. Right? Because she is the queen, among other things. You know, she is the queen of miscarriages, abortions, child loss. So now we've got it in Leo. And I think that I was going to mention also that hair is a big Leo thing. And Lilith hair, what does that mean? Having really wild hair. I'm looking forward to hairdos this year. We've already got, I don't know what it's like around you, but the kids here have got mullets. Which is, I'm not sure if that's Lilith and Leo, but certainly interesting. So maybe we should all grow manes this year. And I also noticed that there have been these uprisings among the women of Iran and Afghanistan. And one of the things in Iran has been all about the hair, showing the hair. Very Lilith and Leo. Because the power, with Lilith and Leo, the power is in the hair. Okay? So I think just to sort of quickly, I'll just mention, you know, who is this really, really important for? Obviously, if you were born with Lilith and Leo, I'll do a little list and put it on the members page. If you were born with Lilith and Leo, this is a Lilith return. It happens only every 9 years. If you have a rising sign that is, or a sun sign that is fixed, so that would be Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, then this is going to be, Lilith is on one of the angles of your chart, or in an angular position to the sun, so it gives it a little bit of extra push with the sun. And since this is in the sign of the sun, that gives it even more push. I think particularly for Scorpios, this could be important for your career, you know, coming out maybe as a more Lilith type person who's willing to break the rules, who's willing to stand up and speak about something that is dark, who's willing to talk about abuse of power, you know, so this is, you know, all different kinds of abuse, who's doing the Lilith thing of standing up and talking about something that people don't want to talk about, of willing to be outside the box. It's important for, I think that's very important for Scorpios, but also for Leos. For Taurus, I think this is probably more likely to be around maybe family or some secrets coming out in the family. And for Aquarians, this is really interesting because it's going to be in your opposite sign. It's something to do with the people you encounter, maybe more Lilith, more unpredictable, wilder, harder to control. And it's so interesting for you, Aquarius, because you also have got Pluto in your sign, and all of us are experiencing, until June, you've got Pluto in your sign. We're all experiencing that that tension, because these two dark, wild, hidden, secret planets, well, it's not a planet, a point in a planet, are actually in an intense aspect, and have been for since beginning of, well, since the end of March, right? And that'll go on till June. And that opposition between those two dark planets is on the bendings, so, which is the midpoint of the node. Sorry, this is a little technical, but it's interesting because it means that the night sky is, or the sky is quartered between these nodes and this opposition between Pluto and this other mathematical point. And these are all invisible. So there's a lot of stuff, I would suggest, this year, especially this spring, going on behind the scenes. Well, we have the razzmatazz of Jupiter in Aries going on. We've also got stuff going on behind the scenes. And Lilith is part of that. The dark feminine power is part of that, and maybe coming from some more kind of regal places. So just to end, I'm going to put a little bit more information on my members page, including some more aspects and things like that. And see you next time.